Today, Photoshop Part 3 for beginners. Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today, we're going to do Part 3 of Photoshop for beginners. Now today, we're going to do a basic photo restore. So let's get right into it. Okay, everybody, welcome back to Part 3 of Photoshop for beginners. Let's go ahead and open up Photoshop. Remember, again, I'm using Photoshop 2017 CC. It doesn't matter. You can use 2021, 2020, 2018, 2016. The principles are basically the same. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up a photo. Here's a photo that I have that a client asked me to do. So I'm going to go ahead and load a photo. Now remember what I said about when you're working in Photoshop, you don't want to damage the photos that you're working on or any type of application that you're working on. Now, one thing I want you to know that's substantial with this photo, okay? First of all, when the client gave it to me, you can see the photo's in very, very bad shape, okay? And you can see here that it's oblong, so it looks like the client must have had it in a book or something. So we're gonna have to work with that. You see that there's some tears on the photo. There's some glare here, and around her face there's some tears. There's some incorrections here. There's a fold right there, okay, and there's some spots. All right, so now what we're going to do, we're going to go over the actual tools that we learned about in the first two tutorials, okay? So we're going to go ahead and talk about a couple tools that we want to be involved here. Now for this photo, we're going to talk about color correction, and we're going to talk about the clone stamp tool. We're going to talk about the spot healing brush tool. You want to copy the background photo that you're working on because you do not want to damage this, right? Because it's the client's photo. So go Control J. Now, as you see, after you hit Control J, it gave you a copy of the photo itself. So you can actually work on this photo. So the first thing we're going to do, let's just zoom in here. So go down to the zoom tool, which is here. Click on it. And you want to bring this up so you can get a close look at this photo and see some of the damage that this photo has endured over the years of this lovely couple here. Okay, so you can see he's got a scratch right through his ear. We're going to repair that. Okay, there's some imperfections on his face here. We're going to repair that. Some close to the hair. There's some scarring on the wall. It looks like the photo was folded for some reason, and so that's just some of the things we're going to work out. Now remember, if you don't have Photoshop, there is another photo software out there that you can use that's free. I'm going to get the name of it and I'll post it in the description, okay? So, but it works the same way as Photoshop. So the first thing we want to do is we want to go to our spot healing tool. So the spot healing tool that I meant to mention, and that's the patch tool. The patch tool is going to come in very handy as well, okay? So the spot healing tool, you see my brush is set at 15. Now remember we talked about in our last tutorial brush sizes, right? When you're working with brushes, you basically want to make sure that you don't have a size that's too small or too big, okay? So if you take the brush tool, right now it's set at 15, so it's perfect. So if I go over here and I click here, boom. See how I took that spot away? It basically takes that spot away. Now, if you notice, there's a little bit of imperfection after using the spot healing tool, right? So for all these little imperfections, and that's why photo restoration takes hours, you can use the spot healing tool to get rid of little imperfections. But the thing about it is that it does leave a little bit of a smear, so you got to be careful. So what I want to do now is I want to go through this video, and you can follow along with me, and you can use any photo, or maybe if I can, I'll post this photo in the description. So now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go over the photo with the spot healing tool brush, right? And then I'm going to see what I can heal with the spot healing tool brush. Okay, so I'm going to speed this up, and then when I'm done, I'm going to come back, and then we're going to go over some other tools. Okay, so I'm back with you. Sorry about that, but I had to go through. Now, I think I'm done with the spot healing tool as much as I want to use it, because there, like I said, with the spot healing tool, there is some imperfections that come along. And one thing I forgot to mention is that when you're dealing with Photoshop, if you take your mouse and just let it sit over a tool, it'll tell you what it is. All right. So in this case, we're going to select the clone stamp tool. And but first we're going to zoom in, right? Because I want to fix his ear here. He's got a lot going on. He's got a big scratch through his ear. So we're going to go ahead and fix that. So let me just zoom in a little more. So now the way that the clone stamp tool works is that you have to hit Alt to select an area that you want to correct. Clone stamp tool. All right, so there's my brush. Now you see my brush is at 15, but it looks huge because I zoomed in. So let's say if I want to fix this area here, right, all the way up to his ear, and you see how the coloration is here on his face. So what you want to do is hit Alt. Now when you hit Alt, you'll see your cursor will change to like a crosshair. And then what you want to do is you want to select, click on your mouse, left click on your mouse, and then you paint in, you sample, paint, sample, paint. Now when I do that, I'm hitting Alt, and then I left click on my mouse once, release Alt, paint. Okay, so sample, click, paint, sample, click, paint. Now when you get to close areas like this, you want to make your cursor smaller. To make your cursor smaller, all you have to do on your keyboard is hit the left or right brackets. Okay, that's the square brackets on your keyboard. So if you hit the left square bracket, it makes your cursor smaller. If you hit the right square bracket, it makes your cursor bigger. Now we're going to go right back to what we were doing. We're going to go sample. We're going to go Alt, paint, Alt, paint. Remember, Alt, paint, Alt, paint. You want to be really careful because now we're on the inside of his ear, right? So we want to make sure that we do this correctly. Alt and paint. Alt. When I say Alt, that means I'm pressing Alt. Remember, it's Alt, then left click on your mouse. All right? So now what we're actually doing right now is restoring this photo. Okay. And you want to be a little bit careful. You want to give the photo some depth. You know, you don't want it to look like it's been, faked. You want it to look, almost real. Right? So you can see right here is that there's a dark area in his ear. So I'm going to lower my cursor. And then obviously Alt, click, Alt, click, Alt, click, Alt, click. Now you get the gist of it, of what I'm doing here, right? So now let's zoom out. Now the way that you zoom is that obviously you click on the magnifying glass and then the crosshair comes up plus. If you want to zoom out, just hit Alt and then click, and then I'll zoom you back out. I want to see what else I can correct. Now I see something already. Now you see how much better that looks already, right? When we're still not done yet, we got to still go back and do some more correction. I see something right on his lip. So let's go correct that. Let's zoom that in. Okay. And here's where the clone stamp is just amazing because it actually helps you more than the spot healing tool. Okay. So let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use that. I'm going to use that because it looks like it's right on his gum line. And clone stamp that a little bit more. I'm going to make my cursor a little bit smaller. I'm going to sample that because I want to make his lips fuller. Sample, sample. When I say sample, that means I'm just pressing on Alt. And that looks, look at that, that looks 10 times better, guys. One thing I forgot to mention, when you're using the spot healing brush, let me just go back because I don't like that. You can actually overpaint. Okay, so you don't want to do that. So now I'm going to do a couple more things with the clone stamp tool just to show you guys how to use it, and then I'm going to speed up the video to finish correcting this photo. Okay, so I'm going to kind of look at her hair right now. See, there's a line going right through her hair, right? So that line is not natural, right? But the beauty of the clone stamp tool, all I have to do is select and paint, select and paint, select and paint, select and paint, select and paint. Now the reason why I keep saying select and paint is because you don't want to keep painting when you select something, because if you do, then the algorithm in Photoshop tries to sample it on several different areas, and then what happens is that it'll streak the photo, and you don't want to do that. All right, so I'm going to make my brush a little small here, and then, you know, I actually think that looks pretty good. I'm just going to go ahead and crease my brush a little bit there. I see a little something there, so I'm just going to paint that a little bit and paint that a little bit, and good. Now she also has something on her lip. All right, so guys, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to go ahead and speed up the video. You get the gist of what I'm doing, okay? So I'm using the clone stamp tool and I'm using the spot healing brush tool. So I'm going to go ahead and finish correcting this, and then when I get done, I'll come back to you. Okay guys, I just wanted to slow you down here. So you can see I have made a vast improvement on this photo already. So now I'm going to go ahead and use the patch tool. Okay, so now I'm going to select the patch tool. The patch tool is very different from the clone stamp tool. Okay, remember we had to click and hold with the clone stamp tool. With the patch tool, what you want to do is the area that you want to correct, okay, you want to draw and make a complete section of the area that you want to correct. Okay, then it'll highlight. What you do is then you take that section, you pull it up to the section that you want to correct, and then boom, it'll correct that section. Okay, I'll give you another example. There's a little bit of movement here right by the gentleman's chin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to draw as best as I can a little circle there. Then I'm going to move that circle close to his chin, and I'm going to release. Okay, actually I did that in reverse, my bad. What I should have did was circle the area. Correction on that, guys, I told you wrong. To correct the area that you want to fix, you select the area, okay, and you draw it out, and then you move it to the area that you want for that particular area to be fixed, and then boom, see that how it fixed that? It fixed that perfectly. And the same thing here, grab the chin, make a complete drawing of it, pull it out of the way, and boom, it gets rid of that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and continue with the patch tool, and I'll come back to you. Okay, so I'm back with you guys. As you can see, the photo looks 100 times better. Now, there are some other imperfections that I have to work out, but that would take so long on the video, and I don't want to do that. Right now, I want to go ahead and introduce you back to some tools that we were talking about on the menu items. So, if you remember, last time we talked about layers, and we talked about adjustment layers. Okay, and we said that in adjustment layers you can fix color distortions, okay, with filters and things like that. So what we're going to do first, I want to show you, just by simply clicking on one button, you can do some color correction, because this photo is a very, very old photo, and it could stand to have some color correction to it. So if you go up to image, and if you go to adjustments, we don't want to do it just yet, so I'm sorry. If you go to auto tone, there's two ways to adjust colors, right? We talked about, you can do it here, auto tone. So if you click on auto tone, Photoshop will do an algorithm and try to calculate to fix the tone. So you can see it changed tone right away, right? It gave it a different tone. Now you can also do auto contrast. Didn't seem like a subtle move, but there was some movement there. As you can see, it does look a little bit better from the contrast. Now, if you go auto color, now when you do auto color, Photoshop is going to sense the best colors for you. Okay, so sometimes I do this. It depends on the photo. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I go by layer adjustment. So you can go ahead and select auto color. Okay, so it does give it a warmer color, right? Because what happened is that beforehand, let's undo that, and I'll show you what I'm talking about, the difference between the two. So if I turn this off, right, you can see the color that you're seeing here is kind of in phase, kind of out of phase because of the age of the photo. But what Photoshop does is that it sends the algorithm, and it actually gives you what the photo closely more resembled. As you can see, the colors are a lot warmer. Now, I'm just going to go back and undo all this. Step back. Let me see, and step back again, or Control Z. So I like to use step back because it keeps me ground to where I was, and or you can use Control Z, and that'll take you back as well. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to image, and I'm going to go up to adjustments. Then I'm going to go to, remember we talked about layers, right? Your layers that you work on are over here, but there's also adjustment layers. So remember, there's plenty of things that you can choose from. You can do hue and saturation, you do color balance, you can do black and white. And I'm going to show you some cool tutorials coming up with some black and white stuff and like that, okay? So I'm going to go into curves. Okay, remember when we talked about in the first tour, we talked about the RGB, okay, and the color palette and what the colors are made of. You have three simple colors here within the color palette, right? It's red, green, and blue. So this histogram here shows you, okay, the color patterns. It shows you if your photo has too much red, and the way you adjust that, right, is just like a bell curve. So basically what happens is that let's click on the red. I'll just show you. So as you can see right here, the red is just almost there. What would happen is if the red was really out of alignment, what you could do is you could bring your cursor over. Okay, that's too much red. That's actually adding red to it. You could bring your cursor over to the peak of the mountain, let's say in the graph, right? Here we won't need to do that. It's perfect where it's at. Okay, but let's say if it was really, really off though, you could actually bring in your cursor on the whites and blacks, okay, and adjust your photo that way. So if I adjust that way, it takes all the red out. Okay, so the reds look pretty good. We don't have to touch that. And I'm just going to go cancel, and I'm just going to go back one more time because I'm not sure that I stepped all the way back. Yeah, all right, so I didn't step all the way back. So let's do that. And then let's go to adjustment layers again. Let's go to curves. Okay. Now you can see here that the peak is not at the cursor here. The blacks are not at where the mountain starts, right? I said the peak, but you want to take it to where the mountain starts. And I say mountain because they look like mountains, right? So basically you want to move your cursor right to where the mountain starts, right there. I would say would be good. Okay. And you're fine over here. So you don't have to touch the red anymore. I'm sorry, that was the RBG. I apologize. I think I will get it right. So let's go to the reds. Okay. So the reds, basically, you see the peaks here in the histogram. Or let's think of these as mountains, right? So if you can see right where the mountain starts on the white side, it's perfect. Okay. That's how you want to adjust your colors here. All right. So on the black side, though, you can see that it's off a little bit. So you want to adjust that right to where the mountain starts. Okay. That's for the reds. Now you want to do the same thing with the blues or the greens, excuse me. Now you see the green is almost perfect, but it is off just a tad bit. You want to bring it straight to the beginning of the mountain. And on the white side, it's fine. And then let's check out our blues. Okay, now you look here, the blue is way off, right? On the white side. So what you want to do is bring your blue over. Okay. And you can always adjust these lines, right? You can always adjust these lines here as well in your histogram. I prefer not to. Let's cancel that out. And like I said, a lot of times you can use the auto color and the auto contrast and the auto tones, and Photoshop will do it exactly for you, but it doesn't give you that personal touch. The better way is, like I said, is to use the adjustment and then use your curves. Now there's other things you can use, like I said, saturation. You can use all these things to help you correct your photo. Okay, you have to explore. So let me bring that blue back over where it was. There we go. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. All right, so those are some ways to adjust your photo, right? All right, now I still see some imperfections on his suit there that I don't like. So let me just zoom in. Let me scroll up. And I want to get rid of that. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the patch tool. And I'm going to grab this whole area right here, lock it in, bring it over here, and boom, that got rid of that. There's a spot here I want to get rid of. Boom, gone. Spot there I want to get rid of. Spot there I want to get rid of. Okay, we can slide this back over. And there's some other spots there I want to get rid of. Let me see here if I can grab that and pull that over. Nice, lovely. Okay, so let me just bring this back out. Now what I want to do is I want to frame this, okay, because you can see here the photos all out of shape, right? Okay, so last week I talked about a tool and it speaks specifically to this photo, right? Remember this photo's kind of warped, it's out of shape, right? So remember what I said about the perspective tool? The perspective tool will allow me to crop this photo to make it actually better, so the customer, when they see it, they can actually make heads and tails of the photo. Okay, so you want to select the perspective tool and you want to click in one corner of the photo and hold your left mouse button, and then you want to drag it all the way over to match your photo. And what happens is you get this grid, and what this grid allows you to do, it allows you to correct the size of the photo. Okay, it allows you to actually make the photo a little bit better than what it was. Now I know you're saying, well, you sacrifice a little bit. Well, you will sacrifice a little bit of the photo, but it's not that much. But you're going to see what I mean. So take a look at it now, and then when I hit one button, and now whenever you work with cropping tools or perspective tools, you have to accept what you have done. Okay, all right, and you do that by hitting this check here. So watch what happens. Boom. Now, I noticed that there's still a little bit of imperfections there, but look at this photo, folks. Look at this. How much better is that? There's still some corrections that I have to do. And listen, I want you guys to play around with this photo, use it. Don't be afraid to mess some things up. Remember, Control J copies your layer, right? So you won't be messing up your photo. All the work that you do, it'll come out on the copy layered. And once you're satisfied, then you can go ahead and save this. Now I'm going to go ahead and correct this here, and I'm going to correct that here, and then you're going to see that's going to look like a normal photo. So I'm going to speed up this process. Now what I'm going to be using here is the clone stamp tool and the patch tool, and you'll see what I mean. Okay, so I'm going to speed this up. Okay, back with you guys. Now check that out. How good is that? Okay, that's going to be a very, very happy client. There is still imperfections that I have to clean up. I see a scar right there, and that's nothing. I'll take care of that later. But I just wanted you guys to get the gist of this. There's some stuff right there that I see. I could probably clean that up real quick while I got you here. Clone stamp. That clone stamp tool is amazing, folks. Let me tell you, that's one of the best tools to use. Look at that. It cleans those imperfections right up. There is some other minor stuff here that I will have to clean up. There's some glare there, but you get the gist of what I'm trying to do. So if you have a photo, it's very easy to fix a photo, especially if you have your own photos. Now, I do recommend, if you're going to use your own photo, make sure you use a good scanner. And when you scan your photos from a scanner, do not scan them as a JPEG, because what happens is it loses its quality. When you want to scan a photo, scan it as a TIFF. And then what you do is you work in Photoshop with a PSD or a TIFF. And then when you're done with all your work, you can save the photo as a JPEG. And now this photo here, she can actually take it. I can actually do some sharpening to it and things like that, but I'm not going to worry about that today. I just wanted to jump in this quick tutorial for you guys. I did this kind of twice. There's one other one that I did. That's another kind of color correction that I did on the photo, but I actually like this one better because it kept it kind of authentic. There's some noise cancellation that you can probably do in here. So if you go to filters, you can actually go to noise, and let me see here, dust and scratches, right? Now, when you're working with this, you have to be careful, because what it does is it depixelizes the picture to get rid of the noise. Okay, now this picture still has a lot of noise, but it's kind of restored to the point where the customer can actually have it printed out, and it'll last. So what you have is the radius of your pixels, and what that means is that you can actually raise your pixelation, and it'll pixelize the noise in the photo and actually drown it out. And then you have the threshold. Right now I'm at 3. You'll see what I mean. So let's say if I wanted to make my radius, I don't know, 5, you'll see the photo starts to blur, right? And then let's say if I raise my threshold to 20, okay, the photo's still a little bit blurred. Let's go to 50. Now it's a little bit better. And now what it's doing is taking out the noise. You can see it looks really, really good here. So let me just click OK. And it even sharpened the picture a little bit more. And you can do sharpen. Remember what I said in the first tutorial. Sharpen is not what you think. So you don't want to go sharpen. You want to go unsharpen mask. Okay, when you're working with sharpening. And the reason why that is because if you go sharp, the first thing it wants to do is Photoshop is when it takes those pixels and it want to really, really dampen those and darken them. So it'll make the photo look like it's kind of like more older than what it is. So you don't want to do that. That's why you do an unsharpening mask, right? So right now we at 10 and 31. So you can play around with that. I mean, you can just just grab this stuff, guys, and just play around with it, okay? All right, I didn't mean to do that, accept it. Let me undo, step back. But you can grab this stuff, guys, and play around with it. And you can do your adjustments here. You can do the amount here, the radius here. You see what I mean? If you select too much. Now, there's an effect that you can do that I'm going to show you later on in some more tutorials that for cartoons. You can cartoon yourself, but we're not going to do that. And part of that is what I just did, right? So, but anyway, let's just bring that back to some normalcy. And as you can see, if you get playing around with this too much, it will depixelize the picture. So you don't want to mess around with it too much. All right, so I'm going to click cancel out of that, and I'm going to go undo or step back. So basically, guys, that's it for the tutorial today. Look for another tutorial next week. We'll go over I think what we're going to do, we're going to animate some text next week. So basically, this is how you basically restore a photo in Photoshop. I did not do the complete restoral because it does take a lot of time, and I don't want to take up most of your time. But anyway, thanks for joining me on this tutorial. Make sure you comment. Make sure you subscribe. Also, pass this to your friends and have them subscribe. I would appreciate it very much. And thanks, guys, and have a great day.